The sound of fabric tearing echoed through the courtyard like a heart breaking in two. Mama Bisi stood in the center of the gathering, her face twisted with disgust, holding the ruined pieces of what had once been a beautiful engagement cloth. At her feet knelt Amina, the young weaver whose trembling hands had spent 3 months creating that gift. "You are not good enough for my son," Mama Bisi declared, her voice sharp enough to draw blood. "You will never be good enough." The family members sitting in a circle looked away in shame. Some whispered, others stared at the ground. But no one spoke up. No one defended the gentle girl whose only crime was loving a man above her station. Kofi, Mama Bisi's son, stood frozen in shock, the betrothal bracelet still gleaming on Amina's wrist. He had just announced his intention to marry her. He had just told everyone how much he loved her. And now his mother had destroyed everything in seconds. But why such cruelty? What makes a mother hate the woman her son loves? To understand this moment of humiliation, we must go back to where it all began. To the day love first bloomed between a rich man's son and a poor weaver's daughter. Kofi was not like other wealthy young men. While his peers spent their days boasting about their father's riches and competing over who owned the finest clothes, Kofi walked the village with quiet humility. He greeted elders with respect. He helped children retrieve kites from trees. He never looked down on anyone, no matter how poor. His mother, Mama Bisi, was the opposite. She was the wealthiest woman in 3 villages, owning vast lands, trading businesses, and a reputation that made people bow before speaking to her. But her wealth had hardened something inside her. She believed money and status were everything. "A person without wealth," she often said, "is a person without worth." She had raised Kofi alone after his father died, pouring all her ambition and pride into him. He was her masterpiece, her legacy, and she had already chosen the kind of woman he would marry. Someone from a wealthy family. Someone who would bring more status, more connections, more power. What she did not expect was that her son would fall in love with a weaver's daughter, a girl with nothing but skill in her hands and kindness in her heart. Amina lived in a small compound at the edge of the village with her parents and 2 younger brothers. Her father was a weaver, teaching his craft to anyone willing to learn. Her mother sold the cloth they made at the market. They were not wealthy, but they were honest, hardworking, and respected for their integrity. Amina had learned to weave before she learned to write. By the time she was 15, her hands moved across the loom like birds in flight, creating patterns that seemed to breathe with life. She wove stories into cloth, scenes of village life, symbols of hope, and colors that captured the emotions she could not always speak aloud. But despite her skill, she remained humble and soft-spoken. She never sought attention or praise. One morning, Amina was walking to the stream to wash newly dyed thread when she stumbled on a root and dropped her basket. Bright red and gold threads spilled across the path like rivers of fire. Before she could gather them, a young man knelt beside her, carefully collecting each strand. "These colors are beautiful," he said, handing them back. "Did you dye them yourself?" Amina looked up into kind eyes and felt her heart skip. "Yes," she whispered. "It was Kofi." From that day, Kofi found reasons to visit the part of the village where Amina's family lived. He would stop by the weaving shed, asking questions about patterns and techniques. Amina's father, delighted to have an interested student, would explain the craft while Amina worked quietly nearby, stealing glances at the young man whose laughter filled the small space with warmth. Slowly, friendship grew between them. Kofi admired Amina's talent, but more than that, he admired her gentle spirit. She never gossiped. She never complained. When a child knocked over a pot of dye, ruining hours of work, she simply smiled and said, "Mistakes teach us patience." Amina, for her part, saw in Kofi something rare, a wealthy man who treated everyone with the same respect. He did not flaunt his status or speak down to her family. He sat on the ground with her father, ate simple food with gratitude, and helped carry heavy bundles without being asked. One evening, as the sun set and cast the weaving shed in golden light, Kofi finally gathered his courage. "Amina," he said softly, "I know I should not speak so boldly, but my heart will not stay silent. I love you, not for what you have, but for who you are. Amina's heart soared and broke at the same time. Kofi, I love you too, she admitted, tears filling her eyes. But your mother, she will never accept me. I am nobody. My family has nothing to offer. Kofi took her hands firmly. You are not nobody. You are the woman I choose. And my mother will see your worth, just as I do. But Amina knew better. She had seen Mama Bisi at the market, had heard the way she spoke to those she considered beneath her. Still, love makes us hope for miracles. When Kofi told his mother about Amina, Mama Bisi's face turned to stone. A weaver's daughter, she said coldly. Have you lost your mind? Kofi stood firm. Mama, she is kind, talented, and honorable. She will make a good wife. Mama Bisi's laugh was bitter. Talented at what? Making rags? Kofi, I did not raise you and sacrifice everything to watch you throw your future away on a poor girl with no family name, no education, no status. You will not marry her. I forbid it. But Kofi would not be moved. Then I will convince you, Mama. Give her a chance. Meet her. See for yourself. Mama Bisi's eyes narrowed. Fine. Let her come. Let's all see what you think is so special. The family meeting was set for the following week. Amina prepared for it with a mixture of hope and dread. She wanted to make a good impression, to show Mama Bisi that she was worthy of Kofi's love, even if she lacked wealth. So she decided to create a gift, an engagement cloth, woven with every ounce of skill and love she possessed. For 3 months, Amina worked on that cloth. She used the finest threads she could afford, dyed in colors that symbolized prosperity, joy, and unity. She wove intricate patterns that told the story of 2 families joining together. Every stitch was a prayer. Every thread was a hope. Her mother watched her work late into the nights, worry creasing her face. My daughter, what if it is not enough? What if she rejects you no matter what you do? Amina smiled tiredly. Then at least I will know I gave my best. On the day of the meeting, Amina dressed in her finest wrapper, though it was simple compared to what wealthy girls wore. She carried the folded engagement cloth in her arms like a precious child. Kofi met her at the entrance to his family compound, his eyes shining with pride. You look beautiful, he whispered. Do not be afraid. I am with you. Mama Bisi's compound was vast and intimidating. High walls surrounded the main house, which was painted bright white with carved wooden doors. Inside, relatives sat in a large circle on embroidered cushions. The air smelled of expensive perfume and roasted meat. All eyes turned to Amina as she entered, and she felt the weight of their judgment immediately. Whispers spread like fire. That is her. So plain. Look at her wrapper, so cheap. Mama Bisi sat at the head of the gathering, draped in layers of the finest fabric, gold glinting at her neck and wrists. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes were cold. Kofi led Amina to the center of the circle and stood beside her, his hand lightly touching her back in support. Family, he began, his voice steady and proud. I have brought before you the woman I intend to marry. Her name is Amina, and she is the most honorable, talented, and kind woman I have ever met. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a beautiful beaded bracelet, placing it on Amina's wrist. With this, I declare my intention to make her my wife. The room fell silent. Amina's heart pounded. Then Mama Bisi stood slowly, her face darkening like a storm. Amina stepped forward, her legs trembling, but her voice soft and respectful. Mama Bisi, I know I come from a humble family. I know I do not have the wealth or status you might wish for your son, but I bring something I hope is valuable, a pure heart, willing hands, and a love for Kofi that is deeper than any ocean. She unfolded the engagement cloth and held it up for all to see. The room gasped. Even in the dim lamplight, the cloth shimmered with life. The colors were breathtaking, deep blues, rich golds, emerald greens, all woven into patterns so intricate they seemed to move. It was a masterpiece, the kind of work that would hang in a king's palace. For a moment, even Mama Bisi seemed taken aback. But then her face hardened again. She stepped forward, snatched the cloth from Amina's hands, and held it up for everyone to see. This, she said mockingly, this is what you offer? A piece of cloth. Before anyone could react, Mama Bisi gripped the fabric with both hands and tore it down the middle. The sound was sickening, final. Gasps filled the room. Amina's face went pale, her hands shaking. The cloth that had taken 3 months to create, that held all her hope and love, lay in ruined pieces at Mama Bisi's feet. Mama Bisi's voice rang out, sharp and cruel. You are not good enough for my son. Do you hear me? Not good enough. You think because you can weave a pretty cloth, you are suddenly worthy of this family? We are not weavers. We are traders, landowners, people of influence. You are nothing. Your family is nothing. And I will not allow my son to disgrace himself by marrying you. Tears streamed down Amina's face, but she did not speak. What could she say? Kofi stepped forward, his face red with anger. Mama, how could you? Mama Bisi turned on him, her eyes blazing. Silence. I raised you. I built this wealth for you. And you repay me by wanting to throw it away on a girl who brings nothing but shame. She turned back to Amina, her voice dropping to a cold, dangerous whisper. I will give you one choice, girl. Walk away from my son now, leave this village and never return. Or stay, and I will make sure your family is shunned by every trader, every elder, every person of influence in this region. Your father will lose his customers. Your brothers will never find apprenticeships. Your family's name will become poison. Choose. Amina stood frozen, her mind reeling. She looked at Kofi, whose face was a mask of horror and helplessness. She looked at the torn cloth at her feet. Then she looked at Mama Bisi's cold, merciless eyes and understood. This woman would destroy everything Amina loved if she stayed. Her family, innocent and kind, would suffer for her love. She could not let that happen. With trembling hands, Amina removed the betrothal bracelet from her wrist. She walked to Kofi, whose eyes were filling with tears, and pressed it into his palm. I am sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. I love you, but I cannot be the reason your mother hurts my family. Kofi grabbed her hand desperately. No, Amina, please. Do not do this. We can fight her. We can. Amina shook her head, tears blurring her vision. Some fights cost too much, Kofi. I must go. She turned and walked out of the compound, past the staring relatives, past the ruined engagement cloth, past the life she had dared to dream of. She did not look back because if she did, she would not have the strength to keep walking. That night, while the village slept, Amina packed a small bag and left, disappearing into the darkness like a ghost. Amina traveled for 2 days, walking until her feet bled, until she was far enough away that Mama Bisi's influence could not reach her family. She arrived in a bustling market town where no one knew her name or her story. She was just another poor girl looking for work. She found a corner in the textile section of the market and offered her weaving services. The market women, seeing her youth and desperation, paid her barely enough to afford a small room and 1 meal a day. She wove simple cloth, plain patterns, basic colors, nothing like the masterpiece she had created for Mama Bisi. Her heart was not in the work anymore. Every time she touched the loom, she remembered Kofi's face. Every thread she pulled felt heavy with loss. The other weavers noticed her sadness. Why do you look like your soul has died, girl? An old woman asked one day. Amina forced a smile. Just tired, Mama. But it was more than tiredness. It was a deep, aching emptiness. She went through the motions of living, waking, working, eating, sleeping, but she felt like a shell, hollow and fragile. Weeks turned into months. Her skill remained, but her spirit was broken. Until one afternoon, a man stopped in front of her stall. The man was tall and lean, his hair gray, but his eyes sharp and full of life. He wore simple clothes, but there was something commanding about his presence. He picked up one of Amina's plain cloths and studied it carefully, turning it over in his hands, examining every thread. Who taught you to weave? He asked quietly. Amina looked up, surprised. My father, sir. The man nodded slowly. Your father taught you technique, but someone or something taught you sorrow. He set down the cloth and looked directly into her eyes. I am Alade, master weaver. I have been creating tapestries for kings and chiefs for 40 years. And I can see in this simple cloth something most weavers spend their whole lives trying to achieve. There's a story hidden in these threads, a pain woven so tightly it almost suffocates the pattern. Who hurt you, child? Amina's eyes filled with tears. She had not spoken of Mama Bisi or Kofi to anyone. But something about this man's gentle authority made the words spill out. She told him everything. The love, the rejection, the torn engagement cloth, the impossible choice. When she finished, Alade was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Come work for me." Amina blinked in confusion. "Work for you? But I am no master weaver, sir. I am just—" Alade held up his hand. "You are a weaver whose heart has been broken. And broken hearts, when they choose to heal, create the most powerful art. I do not offer you this out of pity. I offer it because I see in you a gift that is being wasted on grief." He leaned forward, his voice firm. "The most beautiful cloth is not woven from the finest thread. It is woven from the spirit of the weaver. Pain, joy, love, loss, these are the true materials of our craft. You have felt all of these things deeply. Now I will teach you how to weave them into something that speaks to the soul." Amina hesitated, fear and hope warring inside her. "What if I am not good enough?" Alade smiled gently. "That woman told you that you were not good enough. But she measured you with the wrong tools. She measured wealth, status, name. I measure heart, dedication, and the courage to continue even after being broken. And by those measures, you are more than enough." For the first time since leaving Kofi, Amina felt something stir inside her chest. A tiny spark, the beginning of hope. "Yes," she whispered, "I will come." Under Alade's guidance, Amina's weaving transformed. He did not teach her new techniques at first. Instead, he taught her to reconnect with her own spirit. "Do not weave to please others," he said one morning as they sat at the loom. "Weave to express truth. Let your hands speak what your mouth cannot." He taught her that every color carried emotion. Deep blue for sorrow, bright red for passion, soft gold for hope. He taught her that patterns could tell stories of struggle, of growth, of survival. And slowly, Amina's work began to change. She wove a tapestry of a woman standing alone in darkness, a single thread of light stretching toward her. She wove another of hands reaching for each other across a torn piece of fabric. Each piece was haunting, beautiful, and deeply personal. Alade watched her progress with quiet pride. "You're no longer just weaving cloth, Amina. You are weaving your soul back together." Word of the mysterious young weaver working with Master Alade began to spread among traders and collectors. They spoke of her work in hushed, reverent tones. But Amina remained anonymous, content to work in silence, healing herself one thread at a time. She thought of Kofi often, but the pain was duller now, more like an old scar than an open wound. She had begun to rebuild herself. Meanwhile, in the village she had left behind, Kofi was dying inside. His mother, victorious in her cruelty, immediately began parading suitable brides before him. Daughters of wealthy merchants, nieces of powerful chiefs, educated girls from influential families. But Kofi rejected them all. "I do not love them, Mama," he said quietly each time. "Then learn to love them," Mama Bisi snapped. "Love is not what builds a legacy. Alliances are." But Kofi could not forget Amina. Her gentleness, her quiet strength, the way she had walked away to protect her family rather than fight. That selflessness haunted him. He became withdrawn, barely speaking, moving through life like a shadow. The warmth left his eyes. His laughter disappeared. Mama Bisi watched her son fade and felt a gnawing confusion. She had done what was right, had she not? She had protected him from a poor match, secured his future. Yet her house felt colder. The relatives who used to visit stopped coming. People in the market no longer greeted her with warmth, only stiff politeness. Behind her back, they whispered. She broke her son's heart to feed her pride. Mama Bisi told herself she did not care what people thought. But late at night, alone in her grand house, she wondered why her victory felt so hollow. Why saving her family status had somehow made her name synonymous with cruelty instead of respect. 2 years passed. Amina had become a master in her own right, though few knew her face. Her tapestries were sold to collectors across the region, each piece commanding prices that would have once seemed impossible. She lived comfortably now, in a modest house near Alaid's workshop, surrounded by threads, looms, and the quiet satisfaction of work she loved. She thought of Kofi less often, but when she did, it was with a bittersweet ache. She hoped he was happy. She hoped he had found someone his mother approved of. She had let go, or so she told herself. Then one afternoon, as Amina was finishing a tapestry of a sunrise breaking over mountains, she heard a commotion outside. Voices raised in surprise and excitement. Alaid appeared in the doorway of her workshop, his face unreadable. "Amina, there is someone here to see you." Her heart skipped. "Who?" Before Alaid could answer, a figure appeared behind him. Tall, familiar, his eyes searching desperately. "Kofi." Amina's hands froze on the loom. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, the weight of 2 years hanging between them. Then Kofi whispered, his voice breaking, "I have been searching for you everywhere. I never stopped looking. Amina, I never stopped loving you." Amina stood slowly, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. "Kofi, how did you find me?" Kofi stepped into the workshop, his eyes taking in the tapestries hanging on the walls, the evidence of the life she had built without him. "I heard traders talking about a gifted weaver working with Master Alaid. They described her work, pieces filled with sorrow and strength. And I knew it had to be you." He moved closer, his voice thick with emotion. "Amina, I have spent 2 years regretting that I let you walk away. I should have fought harder. I should have stood up to my mother right then and there. I was a coward." Amina shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, Kofi, you are not a coward. I chose to leave to protect my family. It was my decision." Kofi reached out and gently took her hands. "Then let me ask you now, with no one threatening you, with no one forcing your choice. Amina, will you marry me? Not in my mother's house, not under her rules. Here, in your town, where you have built a life. I do not care if she approves. I only care that you say yes." Amina looked into Kofi's eyes and saw the same kindness she had fallen in love with years ago, but now tempered with something new. Strength born from pain, resolve forged in loss. "Kofi, what about your mother? She will never accept this." "She will." Kofi's jaw tightened. "My mother made her choice 2 years ago. She chose pride over love, status over her son's happiness. I have tried to honor her, tried to make her see reason, but I will not sacrifice my life for her pride anymore. I love you, Amina, and if she cannot accept that, then she will miss our wedding." The words hung in the air like a vow already spoken. Amina felt something shift inside her, the final piece of her broken heart clicking back into place. She had rebuilt herself, proven her worth to herself, and now the man she loved was choosing her again, but this time without conditions. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." Kofi pulled her into his arms, and they held each other as years of pain and longing melted away. Alaid, watching from the doorway, smiled quietly and walked away, giving them privacy. The wedding was planned for 2 months later. It would be held in Amina's town, blessed by Master Alaid, surrounded by the community that had welcomed her when she had nothing. Against Amina's expectations, Kofi insisted on sending a formal wedding invitation to his mother. "She should have the choice to come," he said, "even if I know what her answer will be." The invitation was delivered to Mama Bisi by a courier. When she opened it and read the names, Kofi and Amina, her hands began to tremble. Her son was marrying that girl, the weaver, the nobody. After everything she had done to prevent it, he was defying her completely. Rage flared in her chest, hot and bitter. She crumpled the invitation and threw it aside. "Let him make his mistake," she hissed to herself. "Let him see what happens when he marries beneath himself." But as the weeks passed and the wedding date drew closer, something strange happened. Mama Bisi could not stop thinking about it. At night, she would wake up and see the image of Amina's face, the gentle girl who had woven that beautiful cloth, the girl whose only crime had been loving her son. During the day, she would catch herself wondering what the wedding would be like, who would attend, whether her son would really go through with it without her. Finally, the night before the wedding, Mama Bisi made a decision. She would go, not to bless the union, but to witness her son's folly with her own eyes, to see the small, shameful ceremony he had chosen over his mother's approval. Mama Bisi arrived in the town early in the morning, traveling with only one servant. She wore her finest wrapper and gold jewelry, determined to show everyone that even if her son had lowered himself, she would not. She expected to find a small gathering in some modest compound, a quiet, embarrassing affair. What she found instead made her stop in her tracks. The wedding was being held in the town's largest courtyard, decorated with garlands of flowers and flowing fabric. Hundreds of people filled the space: traders, artisans, town elders, and collectors. At the center, a canopy had been erected, draped in the most stunning tapestries Mama Bisi had ever seen. And sitting in the place of honor, dressed in ceremonial robes, was Master Alade, the legendary weaver whose name was known across 5 regions, a man so respected that chiefs traveled for days to commission his work. Mama Bisi's heart sank. This was no shameful ceremony. This was a celebration of honor and prestige. As she stood at the edge of the crowd, trying to process what she was seeing, an elder noticed her and approached. "Ah, you must be the groom's mother. Come, there is a seat reserved for you at the front." Reluctantly, Mama Bisi followed, her mind spinning. What had she walked into? The ceremony began with traditional music and dancing. Then Master Alade stood to speak, and the entire courtyard fell silent out of respect. "Today," Alade began, his voice carrying across the gathering, "I have the honor of giving away a daughter. Not a daughter of my blood, but a daughter of my craft and my heart." He turned to where Amina sat, radiant in a wedding wrapper that shimmered with hand-woven gold thread. 2 years ago, this young woman came to me broken, cast aside, told she was not good enough. But I saw what others could not, a spirit of pure gold. Mama Bisi felt her chest tighten. Alade continued, his voice full of pride. "She has become one of the finest weavers I have ever taught. Her work hangs in the homes of chiefs and traders. Her skill has brought honor not just to herself, but to everyone who knows her. Today, she marries a man wise enough to see her true value." He gestured toward Kofi, who stood tall and proud. "And I call upon this community to witness that this bride brings more worth to this marriage than any bride price could measure." The crowd erupted in agreement, voices raised in affirmation. Mama Bisi sat frozen, the words cutting through her like knives. She had called this girl worthless. She had torn her gift in two. She had driven her away. And now a master weaver, a man of legendary status, was publicly declaring Amina's greatness. The vows began. Amina spoke first, her voice clear and strong. She promised to honor Kofi, to build a home filled with love and respect, to stand beside him through all seasons. Then it was Kofi's turn. But instead of facing only Amina, he turned to address the entire gathering, his eyes sweeping across the crowd until they landed on his mother. Mama Bisi felt her breath catch. Kofi began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Today, I marry the woman I love. But these vows are not just promises to her. They are also truths I need the world to hear." He paused, his gaze holding his mother's. 2 years ago, someone I loved told Amina she was not good enough, that she was too poor, too simple, too beneath our family to be worthy of me. And I will carry the shame of not defending her in that moment for the rest of my life. The crowd murmured. Mama Bisi's face burned. Kofi continued, his voice growing stronger. But Amina did not fight back with words. She fought back by walking away to protect those she loved. She fought back by rebuilding herself. And she proved that her worth had nothing to do with wealth or status, and everything to do with character. Kofi's voice rang out clear and unwavering. "I vow to honor Amina, not because she comes from a great family, because she does not. Not because she brings wealth, because she needed none. I honor her because when she was torn down, she rose. When she was told she was nothing, she became everything. Her humble origins did not limit her. They refined her. He turned fully toward his mother now, his eyes glistening. The greatest lie I have ever witnessed was the lie that Amina was not good enough. That lie cost my mother a daughter she could have loved. That lie nearly cost me my soul. Because in rejecting Amina, I was rejecting the very values my father tried to teach me before he died. That integrity matters more than gold, that kindness is rarer than jewels, and that a person's worth is written in their actions, not their bank account. Mama Bisi's hands began to shake. Tears she had not felt in years started to burn behind her eyes. Kofi's voice softened, but the words still cut deep. Mama, you measured Amina with the wrong scale. And in doing so, you lost 2 years of knowing the most remarkable woman I have ever met. I pray that one day you will see what I see. But whether you do or not, I am marrying her today. And I am proud. The courtyard was utterly silent. Every eye moved from Kofi to Mama Bisi, waiting to see how she would respond. Mama Bisi sat rigid, her carefully maintained composure crumbling piece by piece. She looked at Amina, sitting with quiet dignity, no triumph in her eyes, only peace. She looked at Kofi, her son, who had become a man she barely recognized, stronger, clearer, more certain than she had ever seen him. She looked at Master Alade, whose respect and honor were known across the region, publicly claiming Amina as his own. And finally, she looked at the crowd, hundreds of people who had witnessed her son's words, who now knew the truth of what she had done. The shame crashed over her like a wave, drowning her pride, her arrogance, her carefully constructed walls. She had been so certain that wealth and status were what mattered. She had built her entire life around that belief. But in this moment, surrounded by people honoring a girl she had called worthless, Mama Bisi saw the truth. She had been wrong. Terribly, cruelly, devastatingly wrong. A sob broke from her throat, then another. And then Mama Bisi, the proud matriarch who never showed weakness, who never apologized, who never admitted fault, broke down completely. She wept in front of everyone, her body shaking with the weight of her mistakes. Amina stood and walked slowly toward Mama Bisi. The crowd held its breath. This was the moment everyone had waited for. Would the bride reject the woman who had destroyed her, or would mercy win? Amina knelt before Mama Bisi, taking the older woman's trembling hand in hers. Mama, she said softly, using the respectful title despite everything. I did not carry anger toward you. You did what you thought was right for your son. You were protecting what you valued. I understand that now. Mama Bisi looked up through her tears, disbelief and shame written across her face. How can you forgive me? I destroyed your gift. I called you worthless. I drove you away. Amina smiled gently. Because holding on to pain would make me like the person I was told I was, small, bitter, not good enough. But I'm not that person. I never was. And neither are you. Not truly. You just forgot that people are more than what they own. She squeezed Mama Bisi's hands. You are welcome in our lives, if you choose to see us with new eyes. Mama Bisi collapsed forward, embracing Amina like a drowning woman grabbing a lifeline, sobbing apologies that could never fully repair the damage, but were a beginning. Kofi watched, tears streaming down his own face. The crowd witnessed not just a wedding, but a redemption, proof that character will always outlast status, that love will always triumph over pride, and that the truest wealth is found not in what we possess, but in who we choose to become. If this story touched your soul, comment worthy below. Because every person dismissed as not good enough carries within them the seeds of greatness that blind eyes cannot see. Hit that subscribe button and share this story with someone who needs to remember their true value. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever been told you weren't good enough? Drop your story below, because your pain is part of your power. Let's build a community that measures worth by heart, not by gold.